Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Careers Podcast. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with John Milton. John is a personal friend of mine. We've known each other probably for the past 6 to 8 years, maybe. And John is really an incredible friend, teacher, maybe more than an incredible teacher. He's an incredible creator of opportunities for his students. In this conversation, you will hear how John prioritizes leadership and character over skills and talent. And it really does lead to incredible opportunities for his students. I really am thankful that John just allowed me to sit down and learn more of his story. And I really am excited to share it with you today. Check it out. All right. John Milton, welcome to Creating Careers Podcast. You and I have been talking about you being on this for a really long time, pretty much from the start.
From the start.
You and I have talked about this.
You kept telling me no. You said you're not good enough to be here, but like I feel like I don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here. Or maybe you just had a free
I've run out.
Nothing.
I've run out of people. No.
Yeah, no, this studio is amazing. I've told you this, it's so cool. So it's really cool to be here.
Yeah.
And see all this.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. You've had me at your studio
That's right.
numerous times, so I figure I should return the favor.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
Yeah.
But no, I really am glad to finally sit down and have a conversation with you on camera about what you do and about your journey. So I appreciate you doing this.
All right. Well, I'm excited to be here, and that's what we're talking about. Is what I do.
Yeah.
Today.
I mean, it really is. That's
cool.
sorry, you didn't. Yeah. He's like, I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, you've seen a couple of these. I talk about who people are, but then I also talk about their journey. We'll definitely get into what you do with students and how that has sort of evolved over time a little bit, but yeah, I really am looking forward to this. You and I have a professional friendship that I would say has sort of even transferred into more of a personal friendship over the years. Do you remember sort of our early interactions?
Yeah. Well, I love the show Seinfeld, so I'm going to use a Seinfeld reference.
Okay.
I felt like you were like the Bizarro John. Because I heard about you.
That sounds more like a Superman.
It is,
reference.
yeah.
Okay.
It's like you were like the other me, or I was the other you in some way, and we're very different. But like I just kept hearing about this guy. Hey, Brian Pope, he's doing all this really cool media stuff. And this was before I was, for me that this was always kind of a hobby first, as it was I know for you.
Yeah.
But I kept hearing about you. And the first time I met you, I don't even know if you remember, but it was when we were doing our leadership conference. We do a yearly leadership conference. I've been doing that for the last 15 years for Shelby County High School students in all the high schools in Shelby County schools. And I'd heard that you were a teacher at Calera, and you were going to come and you were going to do some photography or video or something. And I just kept hearing all these great things about you. And that's how we met. Briefly, I think, at that conference for the first time. And I was kind of like, who is this guy? And then I saw what you did, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And I don't know if you at that time were still teaching at Calera or you had moved into your new role, but I remember hearing that was going to happen, that you were going to be doing that for the county. And I just thought that was so cool. So that was sort of my introduction to you. And then when we actually met and first started talking, and you told me your background, which again, that's a cool, I don't know how much you've told that story, on your podcast, but for you to go from being a teacher at Oak Grove and kind of a history teacher, I was a history teacher and had this hobby of video and media, and then you turn that into a class, and then it becomes kind of the thing you're known for, and then you come to Shelby County, and then and now you have, this is what you're doing as a full-time career. I think is really inspiring and cool. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, and like you just alluded to, you and I have a lot in common, both in what we did originally and what we ended up moving into, especially in our classes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to jump too much into it. So why don't you start off and just tell us who is John Milton in general? And we do have to share the trip we went on together. So
I don't remember that picture of me looking up at the buildings, like really thinking.
I have a whole collection of you modeling over Chicago. So yeah,
that was a lot. That was a fun trip. I was thinking about that today. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. What was the question? Who am I?
Yeah,
who is
are you?
John Milton? Okay. Well, so I grew up in Shelby County and went to Oak Mountain High School. Did sports in school and kind of that was my thing, and real involved in church. For me, like the media side of things, which I guess this is kind of what we'll get to, I really started developing an interest in middle school and high school for leadership. And that started, I was one of those students who I got put into, hey, go to this like leadership camp or this leadership thing. And it got me really interested in what that was. And for me, leadership became really practical because as I learned how I could influence people, then I was able to have an impact in areas like athletics where I was not the best player, but I could have a lot of impact because I could control my attitude and my effort and kind of how I responded to things and how I responded to others. And I saw that the impact of leadership. And I got really interested in it, I would say my junior year in high school. I knew I was going to go into education. I loved high school. I loved the opportunities you have. I was one of those students who did everything. I played sports. I was in theater. I did music. I did media, like all of it. And I recognized at that time that high school is an environment where you can do all those things. And as you move out of high school, you have to kind of narrow your focus, and you can't do all those things to that level. So I knew I wanted to be back in high school, involved in high school and teaching, but I thought my career was going to be as like a head football coach. Because I loved football, and that was where I really found a lot of my passion and drive was on the football field. And again, so that's what I thought I was going to do. So I'd go to college at the University of North Alabama, continue learning about leadership, being really interested in that, and continue coaching and volunteer coaching. But I was thinking about coming in today. I figured there'd be some type of question about, where sort of my interest in, because for me, it's I love leadership. I mean, that's you and I think every conversation we have, I'll talk about leadership, the value of that. And it's something I've been really still learning and been learning for the last 20 years. But I had to for me, it was a really pivotal moment in college. I was in a fraternity, and I got put into a leadership role that I wasn't really prepared for, but I was excited about, and I was in charge of like all of our events, kind of event planning, social events, trips we would take together of a 60-person fraternity. And I had this big idea, and it was kind of a bold idea to do something we'd never done before. And I worked on it, and I figured all the details out, and I was really good at making phone calls and like getting prices down, and just
still really good at that.
And I mean, if I ever write a book, a friend of mine told me that I should write a book called "It Takes One Phone Call," because there's so much you can just asking for things. I mean, you might get like 100 no's, but you get one yes, and nobody.
That's all you needed.
That's all you need. So I had done all this work, and we had this big meeting where I was going to present my idea, and it was going to be voted on. Well, I presented my idea, and it was great, man. My presentation was great. My communication of it was clear. It was laid out. It was detailed. Got 100% no. It completely fell flat on its face. And so afterwards, I was like, why? Trying to analyze sort of why did that happen? And I went back to one of these leadership books I'd read in high school. It was a John Maxwell book, and he talks about a story from when he was a young pastor at a church, and he came in and he had all these great ideas and how he's going to kind of fix up the church, and they were going to repaint the front door and make the front nicer for new members that would come in. They were going to print sermon notes so people could have those when they were, he was giving the sermon, all these kind of common sense ideas. And he goes to his first meeting with the church leaders, and every idea gets shot down. But he noticed in that meeting that every time he'd bring up an idea, they'd all look to this one guy, Claude, who was like a farmer, who was like a local guy, and he was this old guy, and they'd all look to him. And so he realized pretty soon that your title doesn't really give you the authority, right? It's not, your position doesn't create influence. So he tells the story that he realized Claude was the most influential person in the church. So the next week he goes to Claude's farm and he says, "Hey, Claude, what do you think we could do to kind of make the church a little bit nicer when people walk in that front doorway?" And Claude says, "Well, we could probably paint the door. That'd be a good idea. We could paint the door. We could handle that." He says, I noticed giving sermons, a lot of people, they're not able they kind of miss some of the things I say, or it's a little bit hard to follow sometimes. Yeah, I think maybe we could print out some notes. I think that'd be a good idea. So anyway, a month goes by or whatever. They have another one of these meetings. He said, John Maxwell said, I go into the meeting. I said, well, I don't have anything. Does anybody have any suggestions? And then Claude starts bringing up his ideas. Same ideas he had a month before, but because it was coming from him, everyone accepted it. So I took that strategy back. I realized in our fraternity, there was about 5 or 6 guys who had influence, who if this person said, that's a good idea, 10 other people would say, yeah, that's a good idea. So I took each one of those guys either individually or maybe a couple at a time to lunch or coffee. And I said, hey, here's an idea. Like, what do you think? And I got their feedback. And essentially the plan didn't change very much. I got back up a month later, made the same presentation, and it unanimously passed. And so that was a real pivotal moment for me because I realized that anybody can have a great idea, but it's how you build a team and how you build a coalition around it, and it's how you approach it and how you build relationships because people don't buy into the idea before they buy into the person.
Yeah.
And so that was pivotal for me because I realized that I could have great ideas, but if I didn't do the groundwork of building relationships and trust and finding key people, then I would never be able to do some of the things that I would want to do.
Yeah, just envisioning the way that your program works, that I know of it, which we should say, John is a teacher at Oak Mountain High School now, teaching it started off as broadcast and sort of like journalism kind of stuff. Now it's migrated into, I know, TV production. You do animation, you do graphic design, you do photography, yearbook. Like, I'm sure I'm missing quite a few other things. Film. Music production, podcasting. It's a plethora of digital media that you and your students create. But knowing that story and sort of the experience you had back in college with your fraternity, and knowing how you now run Oak Mountain Media, I can see the direct correlation. Like it's you definitely you build a team that already probably has a lot of influence, and then that team builds the sort of like impact, and change and growth and all the things. So,
well, there's this great. I mean, I feel like in the last 20 plus years, I've collected all this. None of it's original, but it's just all this sort of knowledge or leadership quotes I've heard or book I've read, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's this famous, it's on YouTube where Nick Saban's giving a speech. I think it was shortly after he was hired. And he was talking about the program and he's, it's the famous, you got to get the right people on the bus, you get the wrong people off the bus, and you got to put the people on the bus in the right seats. Mm-hmm. And he's quoting from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, which is, I mean, you could go all the way back to Carnegie and Dale Carnegie and all these, original thinkers and people who read about leadership. But so much of, especially I feel like in the last 10 to 15 years, so much leadership stuff has shifted towards the idea of team dynamics and team leadership and how do you have successful teams, because, you can just accomplish more with better teams and more people. And it's common sense that if you and I are working together, if we have a lot of trust, we can get things done a lot faster. And time is money. So if we can get things done faster because I trust you and you trust me and we have clear vision and communication, and we're in the right spot doing the right thing, then we can accomplish more. And then we can do more things. And that's ultimately going to lead to our business being more productive and more profitable. I think you can apply those same business concepts to student organizations. And so when I started in teaching, and I kind of did that with coaching. And so my coaching background, I was an offensive line coach, which is strange because I'm a small guy, but that was what I was really good at in high school. And I wrestled in high school. And so I was really good. I had the right mind for a wrestler and offensive lineman. I had the wrong body for an offensive lineman, but I understood the techniques and I understood how if this was my job, I was doing this job, so this person could do this job, and it would all piece together. So coaching offensive line, I understood how that whole unit would work to serve the purpose of whatever we were doing with the team or with the offense. And so I did that for years and years and years, and that really was developing this sort of team dynamic mentality. Like, how can you create almost, a team within a team, right? Where you're working together, and you have that dynamic, and everyone's unselfishly doing their job, but they're doing it with a lot of energy, and they're doing it and they're understanding if this person understands this person's job, and how can we be really efficient. And what I saw in that, I feel like translates really well to student organizations. Definitely, I think translates well to in the business world, in the corporate world, although I've never been in that world. I would love to one day, maybe when I get out of education at some point, be in a role where I'm doing these things with other adults and seeing how that works. But there's got to be something to it if there's so many leadership authors and speakers and people who do this stuff and work with companies, where you see that it is more efficient. The more efficient you can become with a team, and the better you can become with your team, the more profitable your company can become. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and he analyzed all these businesses where literally the higher the level of trust that organization had within their teams, the more profitable and productive their teams were. So fast forward to I'm at Oak Mountain High School. I've gone through, I've finished college, I've done coaching. I went to Mountain Brook for 4 years, Mountain Brook Junior High, and then I come over to Oak Mountain, my home. And I've been there for this will be 16 years. So I started off coaching there, but as I started having kids, so going back to who is John Milton, I've got 5 kids, 14 all the way down to 2.
One way to live.
One way to live, right? And so as we started having more kids, I realized the coaching thing just didn't, time-wise, I just couldn't commit to all that. So when I got out of coaching, I still had a desire to do something to make some type of impact. I didn't know what it would be. And so I ended up sort of not accidentally, but just taking over student government at Oak Mountain High School just because someone was leaving and they needed someone to do it. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And I fell in love with leading student organizations in that way, because I realized that, one, you've got a diverse group of students. It's not just all athletes. It's not all guys. It's a mix of all grade levels. And I started applying some of these principles that I had learned with team dynamics and team leadership to see if it would work at that level. And it did. In student government, the 8 years I was there, we saw a lot of growth in what we were doing and success in what we were doing. And then I transferred that over into Oak Mountain Media when we started that program up. I did SGA for 8 years and then stepped out of that role and started this media program. And this will be, I think we're going into year 7 with that. And it's still applying the same principles. Now it's a lot better. What I'm doing now is better than what I did 15, 16 years ago.
Right.
Because I've learned, I've grown, I've figured out things that work and don't work. But still the same idea of investing in the leadership and the team leadership of students and seeing how when they learn how to lead their teams really well, they can actually produce better and more results. And we've seen that this year with our film team, winning, getting first place in a student film contest and up at UNA. And we've had all of our departments have grown, our music department and graphic design, and the quality of what they're doing is better and better and better. But more importantly, the team dynamic is great. It's very healthy teams, very healthy conflict, diversity of ideas, not a lot of infighting or one person doing all the work. And so it's been really cool to see how that's played out in a student organization.
Yeah. When I first visited your class and really since then, even watching, first of all, the number of students you're working with and the variety of projects, it's a bit overwhelming, I think, for visitors. And we've talked before about people want to come and see what's happening at Oak Mountain High School, and other teachers will come and see. And I always preface them. I'm like, just know this, John's built a machine. So like you can't go in there and see what's going on at Oak Mountain with Oak Mountain Media and say, I'm going to do that. Because there's so much behind the scenes, so much prep work you've done leading up to that production or that project that they've done. And for a teacher to step in one time and just view it and say to you, how do you get them to do that? Or what can I do to get this to happen in my classroom? Right. You'd have to teach a seminar. I mean, you'd have to do a week-long conference, and they'd have to come back the next week or the next year and repeat it over again just to begin learning what it is that you do that really makes the impact, because so much of it's behind the scenes. I do want to talk about your creative journey. Like we talked about your journey as a teacher. We've talked about your sort of leadership background and study. What about a camera in your hands? What about sitting down to a computer ready to edit? Talk about your creative journey a little bit.
Well, I had a side hustle in high school where I've always loved film. I mean, I love movies. And my wife will tell you, like, I love movies. I watch movies. I think about movies all the time. I watch behind the scenes. If I watch a movie, I want to see how they made it. I want to read about what they did. Like, I love that aspect of it. And so even when I was like in middle school and high school, with my church, I would do media stuff. Like there'd always be somebody that can you make a video in iMovie, and can you get on here and edit something? Right. And so I would do a lot of that. And with my friends, we would make little mini movies and get different shots and do stuff that like that kind of we would do just for fun. And when I was in high school, I wanted to have, for our football team, because that was such a big part of what I did, I wanted us to have like a really good end of the year video. Nobody was doing like, everybody does that now, but nobody was doing like end of the year videos. And I thought this would be great. And so of course, in my mind, I had like a structure. I was like, okay, well, the middle of the video is going to be like all the highlights. It's going to be like the plays, which we already have. That's on tape. And it was literally on VHS tapes. We'd have to like record. I mean, the process now is just so different, but like just getting all that stuff, that wasn't the hard part. I was like, well, we have to have a beginning and an end. And so I had this idea. Now I'm a high school kid, okay? Right. I had this idea that the beginning of the video would start as the beginning of the season. We'd show clips from practice. We'd show us getting out on the field in our jerseys, and that kind of the grind, the behind the scenes. And then the end of the video had to make the moms cry, because I was going to sell the video. And so if the moms cry, then they'll want to buy and this is, again, nothing was digital, so you could have tapes. So first of all, I had this idea. So again, this is like the side hustle in me, in the business mind. I went to our head coach and I was like, hey, I'd like to make a video that we could play at the banquet. And I said, but I'd like to sell the tapes. And he was like, absolutely, that's fine. So he's like, you make the video and then you can sell the tapes. So and again, I'm in high school. I contacted a guy or company that did like videotape copying, and I got like a price on how many it would be to copy like 200 videos, whatever. I actually had a friend of mine, because I played football, so I couldn't film, right? So I had a friend of mine that I contracted with him. I hired him, I paid him. And this was coming out of my pocket, right? I paid him to come film some practices, and I told him exactly what I wanted, and we had a whole shot list of what he was going to do, and I paid him to do that. And then I edited the whole thing using some equipment that our church let me use with iMovie and things like that. So I put this whole thing together.
You're in there just cutting.
I'm in there.
Like
I mean, it was it was a crazy process, but I put this whole thing together, and we show it at in the big theater or whatever that we have at Oak Mountain High School. And I mean, it was just like a huge, there was emotional reactions to it. And I had done stuff like that before, but not to that level. And I mean, sold not only every single copy, but like I had to go make more copies. And it was enough money for me to buy my own like Mac computer. It did really well. Yeah. And then the next year, that was my junior year. The next year, the football team 101, the softball team 101, the basketball team 101. So I had this little business going where I was making highlight films. What I realized though was that when I was doing the film for football, it meant so much to me that, I mean, I wanted every little detail to be right. And when I was sort of mass producing stuff for like another team that I just wasn't really connected to, I just didn't have like I was not inspired to do it. I would do it, but I kind of just felt like I was phoning it in a little bit.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my behind the camera. When I went to college, I would say a lot of my like creative, like what I did was through churches and youth groups. I did that when I was in college at UNA. The big thing I did, I would say, in the creative world was leading worship. So I would play and sing and lead groups and lead teams, worship leaders, and that's what I would do in that aspect, and working with the sound and the lights and all that kind of stuff. Never was the best, singer or player, but I was good at like the organizational thing, and it kept me plugged into like learning something new about audio, or how do cameras work, or how does the audio work? Like, how do you get audio from here to here, and then how do you get it there to the speakers? And so a lot of those things kind of came in really well when I started the program at Oak Mountain High School, because there was stuff I had learned from setting up audio for church services that years ago, that all of a sudden when we were going to do it there, I'm like, okay, I've got a stage and I've got a booth. How do I get audio from here to there?
Yeah.
And I kind of understood the concept. But after college, I went to Troy for grad school and started a college ministry there with a guy at a local church. There was no college ministry in the town. And so we started a program there, and we needed a website. So I wrote code to build a website. So a lot of when you say like my creative journey, it's really been out of necessity. It's never been like I love a camera and so I want to go just play with a camera. It's always been, hey, we want to create this program, and to create this type of program, we need audio, video, we need these things. And I always wanted to be able to know how to do those things. I didn't want to have to completely depend on someone else to come in and set it up.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I remember a time where it was me, you, and Cole were sitting down to take some tests.
You didn't say, did my publicist not tell you that this was not to be part of the interview?
Wasn't supposed to.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Hey, bring it on. Bring it on.
No, it was so. Well, and I bring this up because I think a lot of people, especially a lot of teachers, feel like they have to be, like the expert in the room in every topic or every skill. And although, I mean, you're talking about some stuff you did back when you were in high school and college, and definitely back then, I would say you could have taught classes on that stuff, just literally like skills. This is how you do this. So back to that test, we were sitting down, we were taking a Premiere Pro test, and I think it was to, I guess, be certified in it, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember you taking the test, and I was looking over your shoulder, and Cole Peavy was looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And Cole and I may have chuckled a few times.
Oh yeah, y'all definitely
did that test.
Yeah,
and
failing the test.
We were convinced that there was no way you were going to pass this test.
Yeah.
And then you submit, and you passed it by like 1 point.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I passed that one or no. I think I did.
You passed it. Yeah.
Well, so look, and again, I use a lot of sports analogies, and I always tell like my students, like I'm not comparing myself to these people. Just understand it. But I'm giving an analogy. Nobody cares how good Nick Saban can throw a ball or catch a ball, or how fast his 40. Nobody cares how fast his 40 time is, how much he bench presses.
Right.
Because when you're the leader of any program, your job is not to be the best at everything. Your job is to be capable enough and good enough that you can get the best and that you can unleash and help them reach their potential. So I've never felt this pressure to be the best editor.
Right.
Because I know that if I focus on that, I'm missing a million other things that are important.
Agreed.
And two, I'm probably not going to be the best editor because I'm not going to be near as passionate about it as that other kid. So my job in the program, and I think you can pass this on organizationally, is get the right people on the bus, get the right kids in the program, put them in the right seats, make sure they're in the right spot. And then I've got to be capable enough to make sure that they have what they need. So if I have a kid that encounters a problem with editing that they can't figure out, I will spend hours, and I've called you before. I will figure it out, because the way I look at my role is to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do organizationally to keep us on track. But then if there is something that's preventing someone from maximizing their potential, then my job is to go in and and help them in that area. And most of the time, this is the thing I've noticed is, and I know we get, off topic of the creative part of the process. Like when you talk about creativity, creativity is great. Creativity is not just like what you can do behind the camera. It's also like solving problems and having a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. And so when I think of creativity, I think of it in that way. And so for me with students, one of my roles is to look at the process and see how you can fix the process and make the process more efficient so that you can unleash that creativity. I'll give you an example. And I have several of these, but we saw, years ago, our film team. We had a film team. And a couple years ago, one of the biggest problems was that when they were setting up to shoot their scenes, it was taking them so long to set up. And the setup process, they can't get in all the rig and putting it all together. And they didn't see that as the problem. What they thought the problem was that they were running out of time, and the filming day was going too long, and the actors on set were like getting frustrated, and that was in their mind the problem. But that wasn't the problem. The problem wasn't all these other things. The problem was the camera was taking too long to set up, which then was leading to people getting frustrated because they're sitting around all day, and all those things, losing light. Excuse me. So I realized the problem was they didn't have the right camera. So I looked into, okay, what camera do we need? What rig do we need? What case do we need? So literally they can have something that they grab, take out of the case, put a battery in and shoot. And so that led to us buying the Ronin 4D that we have that solves that problem. And then all of a sudden you look at the growth from last year to this year, they are just doing amazing things. And that problem doesn't exist. Well, we had another problem with film. They had all these little SD cards, hard drives that they're taking back and forth and moving around and constantly like, well, I can't do this. I want to color grade, but I can't because they have it and they're doing audio and they're doing this and they're doing that. And so something was taking 10 times as long as it should. So the issue wasn't what they were doing. It was the process, right? So we get, one connected drive where multiple computers can connect. We get better computers. And now you can have 3 or 4 people working on the same thing at the same time. So I think that the part of like the creative journey for me, what I've seen a lot of is that when you have a kid who's really creative and really hardworking and has great ideas, or an adult, and you can like declutter all the stuff that's not important and help them get to what they want to get to, which is creating stuff, then that inspires them, it drives them, and they make better stuff and they're happy doing it. And I feel like so much of what I've done is just looking at the process. Because most people, again, this is a leadership thing, but like, I don't really know anybody that wakes up in the morning and says, man, I hope that I just do a terrible job today. Most people want to show up and do a good job. Most of the time, it's not the person that's the issue, it's the process. And if you can refine the process, then you can get the best out of that person that you can possibly get. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark on in the creative world is, I mean, again, if you look to interviews, and I know I'm rambling, but like you talk to an actor and say, what was your best experience? They'll tell you about a director that was a really good leader on set. They're not going to talk about the shots they got or this, that, the other. They're going to say someone who was efficient, effective, whether it's the culture on set they created, the professionalism, but they're going to talk about those things that are really the most important things to making a good quality creative product. So for me, that was part of the creative process, was understanding the frustrations that would happen being behind the camera, and then trying to remove those frustrations so that my kids could just do the fun part. Mostly the fun part.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it since stepping out and doing my own business. Like there's certain skills that I have, and I had them in the classroom. I saw it then. Like my skills oftentimes are relational around work.
Mm-hmm.
Like I enjoy working with people. I enjoy doing the creative process with a team. But I enjoy getting my hands dirty, like putting my hands on the camera, getting into the edit, doing that kind of stuff. But ultimately, like what I created in my classroom was a very small opportunity, relatively speaking. They were able to get involved in this project with me. What you've created is a broad opportunity, like it's vast. They can get involved in so many different things because you've created that system, that those opportunities where you don't have to be divided into 16 different people to be able to do the work with the students. You've empowered each of these groups to sort of do it on their own with access to you when needed or access to other resources when needed. It really is incredible watching from the beginning of Oak Mountain Media to today, and the sort of the growth of those opportunities, which is a little bit of what I want to get into next. But first, congratulations on your ginormous family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 5 kids.
Yeah.
And this also probably gets into a lot of your leadership and process and making things efficient. But how in the world do you run the program that you run at Oak Mountain High School, doing all the things that we're somewhat talking about that they do, and then at the same time still have time to be extremely involved, from what I understand, as a father of 5 kids and a husband of one wife? So.
Yes. Well, I mean, first of all, my wife Emily is amazing, and so I would say, like, as probably most good husbands should say, it's like it's. I feel like it's 90% her. I mean, she does an incredible job, and in areas where she's strong, where areas where I'm weak, she's strong, and vice versa. So, I mean, it really is like a partnership, and she does an amazing job supporting, everything that we do. But I think in terms of like the career part of it, I remember. This kind of goes back to something I learned when I was a teacher at Mountain Brook Junior High. So this is before we had any kids. And a guy who was there, who ended up becoming the principal at Mountain Brook years later. One day I was a young teacher, and I was after school, and I had all these papers and all this stuff to do, and I felt like I was just so behind. And I saw him just kind of walking out of it. His classroom was right across from me, and he's kind of walking out of his classroom and sort of in my head whistling a tune, and just seemed really relaxed. I said, what are you doing, man? And we were coaching together too. He was a coach on the team I was coaching. And I was like, how are you, like, I don't know, how do you do it? And I mean, this was a simple thing he said. And a million people have heard this before, but it really resonated with me. He said, if it's not done by 3:00, it'll get done tomorrow. And I'm not going to carry it home with me. I'm not going to it's not going to be something I take home with me. Now, I do take my work home in the sense that I talk about it a lot. My wife would be the first to tell you that I'm always talking about media, and I'm talking about, and I'm talking a lot about the process, and like, oh, this kid's doing this, this kid's doing that, and this is what's happening. But I don't take a lot of work home in terms of bringing it home and having to work on stuff. And I try to be present when I'm home. I try to be done and leave work at work and come home. I'm not always great about that, as you know. I mean, it's sometimes you're just working on it. You just really like it. If you really like what you do, you're just like, I just want to get back into this. Yeah. But I think like we have so much going on constantly that there's always things that we're doing, and I don't know how we do it. I really don't. Like we'll have 5-6 things happening in the afternoon, and sometimes we just miss things. Sometimes we just can't show up to things or can't do things. But for the most part, it's just, it's really just been, I would say it's the number one priority, and such a joy, because you only get this like short time. I know you're experiencing that right now, because you got a couple that are fixing to leave the house, and they're done. They're out of here. Yeah. Right. And so that time is so short.
We put a time limit on it.
Yeah, y'all did. Yeah, the first 4 are like 2 years apart, and then there's a 4-year gap between the last one, because there was a little bit of a debate about like, we're gonna have 5. But my wife's sister, now they have 7. So, I mean, when we get together with that family, it's so much fun to have like 11 kids running around.
A scrimmage.
It's a scrimmage. I know it really is. But I mean, I love it. It's absolutely the best thing. I mean, having kids is such a joy, and seeing their personalities develop and seeing how they find interest in things.
How old's your oldest now?
My oldest is going into high school. He's going to be in the media program next year, so he's going into the 9th grade. So I've got a 9th grader. I've got my daughter's going to be in 7th grade next year. My next Henry, so it's William and then Caroline, and then Henry's going to be in the 4th grade next year. Jack's going to be in 2nd grade, and then Maisie's still in daycare. So we'll have all 5 of them next year. Will be at 5 different places, like 5 different schools, daycares. So
that's wild.
It'll be wild, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful family.
I saw the picture said congratulations. I was like, what? Is there a surprise? Or we have a number 6?
Yeah. Your
Is
wife
Emily
and
come
I
out
have
and be
actually
like,
worked this out. She's going to come on in now.
Come on in.
That would have been great.
That'd have been crazy. Yeah. Well, I was so excited. I remember like when we found out we were having our daughter, who's 2 now, Maisie. I mean, I was giddy. I was so excited. We were like, and we were like hoping to have another girl because we had all these boys in the family running around, which I love. And we were like hoping to have another girl. So we were excited about that. Yeah, really excited.
We were at the girls, my twins, their graduation party, and our neighbor came over and they have like a newborn. And they let me hold her. And it was like, it takes you back. It's amazing how quick you just sort of get those flood of memories of when you held your child. Of course, yours wasn't that long ago that you were holding a new.
It's funny that you say that though, because kind of getting back into the creative side of it, I do things throughout the year where I go into the studio and record something, or I'll take a song and I'll edit and play with it or do video. So like I still like to make stuff. And so recently my daughter's about to turn 12. She doesn't know this, but she'd asked me a long time ago. And I'm sure your daughters have asked this too. Like make a video for me about something, or maybe they haven't, I don't know. Cause you just make so many videos anyway. They're like, stop making videos for me. Stop doing stuff. Yeah. But she's been asking me to make like a video, cause I made one for a Mother's Day a long time ago, and for her mom. So I have a video I've been making that's going to be for her. And I was watching the clips, and my 2-year-old daughter looks so much like my oldest daughter that's about to turn 12 in those pictures when she was young. And I was like, man, it seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
So to have that now, and again, have my 2-year-old now and just be like, really embrace this, because I didn't realize at the time how quick this goes. So I'm really trying to be like, okay, stay little.
Yeah. It was really neat with our twins. I mean, they were our first. So, I mean, we just recently went through reminiscing about their birth and when they were toddlers, and just having that twin dynamic. We have videos that we've watched recently in preparation for their graduation.
Now I want to know this, them being twins, are they like, and Addison's back there behind the camera, so she may jump in, but are they like real close? Do they fight? Are they close, like they're close and they fight at times?
I tell them all the time, or I used to tell them all the time. Now I just tell them, just get away from each other. But I tell them all the time, like, you're each other's best friends and worst enemies.
Yeah.
They know each other better than anyone else, so they know where to like hurt the most at times.
Yeah.
But then they also like when it's good, when they are in having fun, it really is incredible to watch them from the time they were infants to even now. But yeah, they're ready to get away from each other a little bit. I mean, being around each other for 18 years nonstop, sharing a room like 99% of the time.
Right.
They're ready to move on. So at college, they're going to the same school, but they're not going to live together, at least not initially. So so we'll see. But yeah, family raising kids, I've found, is that it brings you the most joy, but you earn every piece of that joy with all of the challenge. And not all the challenge is like bad. it's tough.
Well, and your kids know you the best. What I've seen too is like we've spent all this time talking about leadership, and I can sound like, man, I really know what I'm talking about. Come to my house and you'd be like, you do not have it together, and it's just funny. It's like, it's like I can be this, so I feel like there is a lot of that. Like it definitely keeps you humble.
Oh yeah.
Because in my wife, I've told my wife this. This is I'll tell you a funny story. Okay. So my wife and I met, after we met at like after a wedding, or a rehearsal dinner. They had a rehearsal dinner and I was coaching at the time, and we ended up at the same like restaurant after. And so that's how we met. And I like got her number and all that. And then, called her and she wouldn't take my call. And then finally she did. And we ended up talking. And anyway, this is kind of this whole story. But she was living in Georgia at the time and I was in Alabama. And so, we had like our first, like we'd been talking maybe for, I don't know, a few weeks or something, just long. I mean, and I'm talking like 2-hour a night conversations, and just really like getting to know each other. And so we had our first kind of like date, and she was coming through town around Christmas break, and she was going to drive through Alabama. And so we're going to get together for a date. And I was like, okay, I want to get her like a Christmas, something for Christmas. We'd just been kind of talking for a little while, so nothing big. So I remember, I got her, and she still laughs about this. So I got her, she had told me like her favorite actress was Audrey Hepburn. So I got her an Audrey Hepburn book. So that was sweet. Right. We had somehow the subject of like film had come up, and I had told her one of my favorite movies was Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and she'd never seen it. So I got her a copy of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That was sweet. The third gift, however, which she still laughs about to this day, and I don't know why I did this. I don't know why she continued to date me after I did this. I brought her a copy of John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership because I loved that book. And I think my intention was like, this is something I really love, and this tells you a lot about like what I'm into. And she said that she got the gifts, and of course she was really nice, and then she was with her sister at the time. But like when they left and were riding back to Louisiana to her home, there was just the oddest conversation with her and her sister. Like, why did he get you this book? Like, is he trying to tell you something about like
trying to turn you into?
And it's funny. And so I tell my kid, and of course, like all my students, because I have a huge collection of John Maxwell books, and we always do John Maxwell stuff just because that resonated with me, and I'm and that's kind of what I share. Whenever I've told students that story, they just laugh, but they immediately, it doesn't surprise them. That they're like, so I was like, well, maybe that was the test that she really loved me, that she stayed with me after I gave her this leadership book. But I think that I've told her before, getting back to family, she's not big into leadership books, like, but she is such a phenomenal leader, like in her work and what she does, how she is with our kids. She exemplifies, I would say she exemplifies all the things that I talk about. And I try to exemplify this. Yeah. She does a much better job of doing it than I do. But she would also be the first to say, well, I don't want to read that book. That's just common sense, right?
Right.
So for me, it's not. For me, it's not common sense. I have to work on it. I have to really try. But for her, she does a really good job with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would imagine, if anything, she's probably taught you way more than she could have learned in a book, or that you have probably learned in a book.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to learn it. You got to learn it looking at it.
And having somebody to bounce those ideas off of too is, she always gives me a different perspective on any situation. So school stuff or life stuff, she gives me a different perspective. That's good.
Yeah, I believe it. All right. So let's talk about this. So this is Oak Mountain Media's logo. You've been using this for a while. It's modified a little bit, I think, more in recent years. But I think this will play. Yeah. So do you remember this?
Yeah.
This video?
I do. You came into our studio and you helped, I say you helped, like you pretty much made this. Like we had some kids, but it was like your equipment and maybe one of our cameras or maybe your camera. But yeah, this was a while back. And I even have some pictures. What'd be cool if you're going to play this is to show some pictures of the original set before this, when it was literally, we had a pallet wood background. And then of course on the website, we have new pictures of what we have now. So, I mean, it's changed a lot. I mean, so we're going into year 7 of the program. And it's changed a lot since then.
It's changed a lot even since
this video. Yeah, it has.
But yeah, no, I've got another image here in a little while that shows, I guess, one of the very first interviews or early interviews that you did.
Yeah.
But tell me this, like, obviously, Oak Mountain Media has gone through a lot of growth. It has evolved a lot. What's been the lessons that you've learned through that growth? What has been maybe the most important ways to grow, or maybe something that maybe people think this is really important, but ultimately in your experience, that's been like the least important piece of growth?
The two most important things, and I got this answer nailed. I know this, is your vision. Like, why do you exist? And this comes from a Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. And he talks about how successful organizations, successful companies, especially ones that are good at selling their vision of who they are, they understand their purpose. And so when we started the program 6 years ago, that was the first thing that myself and Ryan Hall, who helped kind of found the program, we said, okay, what is this program going to be about? What's our like our purpose, like our statement of purpose? And so our statement of purpose was then and has always been to empower students to lead positive change. Like, that's why we exist. So when we talk about, like, we have a film department or we have a music department, like, those things are opportunities to create opportunities for students to lead a small group and learn how to do it better so that they can do that at another level. Learn how to be, kind but direct. Learn how to have care and candor. Learn how to evaluate what the actual problem is. If something's not working, how to fix the process, how to communicate those problems, how to give people a voice. So everything we do is about empowering students to lead positive change. So if that's our why, it guides everything that I do. Because if our vision or if our purpose of the program is to empower students, then that means I have to be doing that with students. I have to empower them, not do their job for them, right? But what does that mean? So then you get into, what does empowerment look like? There's a real simple model to follow, which is, I'm going to do it, you're going to watch, then you're going to do it, and I'm going to be there with you watching, and then you're going to do it, and someone else is going to watch. And so that's how it passes on. And so that was like where we started, was like our why. Like, you got to have your purpose. That's the number one most important thing. The number two thing, and this all kind of works in concert. So once you have your purpose and you clearly over and over and over communicate your purpose for existing, you attract people to that want to join that purpose. So we've had a lot of students who they didn't really want to be part of an organization that's what it was all about. They wanted to go take pictures or do video, but they didn't really want to buy into empowering students to lead positive change. That wasn't really what they wanted to do. So they opted out of wanting to be in the organization or apply for the organization, because you attract what you are, not what you want to attract, right? So the first thing is having a very clear, this is why we exist. And when teachers come in and we'll talk like, how do we do this? How do we do this? Well, why does your program exist? Like, and why should anybody care? Like, if you don't have a strong sense of purpose, then everything you're doing is just trying to figure out how to do something newer and better and cooler, and you're never going to get there because someone's always doing something more than you. My son asked me one time, he's like, why don't you try to get more views on YouTube? You could do these types of videos and get lots of viewers. I said, well, that's not our purpose. I don't care how many viewers we have. I don't care if we have no viewers. Our purpose is to empower students, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing, I read a Patrick Lencioni book years ago and heard him speak, and it's called The Ideal Team Player. And in that, he says that when you're thinking about hiring and working and the people you want in your organization, you're looking for three qualities: smart, hungry, and humble. You need someone who's smart, emotionally smart, like they understand how their words and behaviors affect people. You need to have somebody who has drive, who's hungry. They're gonna do the job, and they want to do more and go beyond, not for themselves but for the team. And then you want to have someone who's humble, who humility. This is that one where it's like, you're not looking for someone that's just going to be walked over. Humility is having a clear understanding of your own abilities and what you can contribute. So it's not thinking more of yourself, obviously, but it's also not undercutting your value. It's like knowing what your value is and bringing that every day. Because if you've got good ideas, but you don't share them, then you're also not being humble,
right?
Yeah.
And
so that's what we tell everybody up front, that this is our why and this is what we're looking for. And we tell students, and we put this out there, we are going to be so committed to this that if you are not showing smart by the words you're saying, your actions, like, we're going to let you know right away. And I tell my students on my leadership team, like, let me know when I've fallen that, because we all have a third. My third is smart. Sometimes the tone I use, because I think some of this goes back to my football coaching days of like, sometimes the tone I use comes across a little harsh and I need to scale it back. So I have students on my leadership team that after, a meeting, if I do have a tone that is a little bit over the top, they'll tell me, and they know that I want to hear that feedback. And so they know that I'm bought into that as well. And those are the two biggest things that have caused growth. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, we were kind of committed to the smart, hungry, humble, but there was a lot of times I was scared, and kids were scared because I was at the top, that if we commit to this, then we're going to lose really talented people. Because you might have a kid that's a really great behind the camera, or really great, at interviewing or whatever skill, but man, they're always saying the wrong thing that's like hurting people's feelings, or they're always like, they're just really all about themselves, or whatever it was, right? And when we committed about 4 years ago and said, no, this is what we're going to do. Like, we're going to say smart, hungry, humble. And if someone comes in and they're not there yet, not saying they can't be there, but if they're not at this level yet, we are not going to put them in a leadership position, period. And when we did that, I expected to have our numbers go down, and our numbers like doubled, like the number of people applying to be in the class. And I think it's because when people really value authenticity, and I don't know any program that says we value skill over character. Like, every program is going to say we value character, right? We value who you are. But then they say that, but if they hire for skill and not character, they're really telling everybody your skill matters more than your character. But when you're really committed to saying we're going to hire for character and we're going to train for skill, and you actually do it, then you get the best people. And I think in any organization that's true, because people see, they're like, oh, like, what's rewarded is repeated. Like, people are getting promoted and people are getting put in leadership roles, not because of their skill or who they know, but because, man, and for us, those values are smart, hungry, humble. Like, they're doing these things. Every single person that's in our organization that's like been a leader or a department head, some have, some skills, some don't, but their success is not tied into their individual skill. It's tied into their ability to lead and the character as a leader. Because, as you know, like with films and all this stuff, I mean, even in the video you showed, none of this is like a solo act.
Right.
It takes a team. And so for you to have a successful team, you have to have, in my opinion, you've got to have a clear vision, a clear purpose. And then to, go back to Nick Saban, smart, hungry, humble. That's how we know who the right people are on the bus. And what I found too, and this is in that Patrick Lencioni book, is you don't have to like fire people. You don't have to like have these, big conflicts. You just have to like, if someone's reminded enough in a nice way, they're going to opt in or opt out. So like if you're on my team, and I think this is true with adults too, right? If you're on my team and you're constantly saying things that cause problems, I mean, every time I remind you, like, that's not who we are, like that, you did this, you can't do that, this can't exist. Then eventually you're going to change, because you're going to be like, oh, well, I got to change. Or you're just going to say, I want to go somewhere else. And I'm probably not going to have to actually do anything to get you to leave. You're going to leave on your own, because that's not what you want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And so those two things have made more difference in our organization and in the growth of the organization than anything else. And it's crazy to me, because it was something that scared me. I thought we were going to lose people. I thought if we said, this is what we're going to do, that we were going to have like 10 kids apply, and we're going to be like, nobody wants to be a part of it. But the opposite has happened. And the kids that are applying are just phenomenal.
Is there anything that people, when other teachers visit or other professionals visit, is there something that people anticipate being really important, maybe or envious of in your program, and you're like, yes, we have that. Yes, that's part of our program, but that really that's not the area that we've seen the most impact in growth.
Right. Well, I think when people walk in, the first thing they'll notice is all the equipment in the room and how it looks. But, it did not always look like that.
Right.
And the way it got there initially was, and still to this day, it's a lot of grants, a lot of people giving support. But they didn't give support to the program because really of any other reason than when we came in, we said our mission is to empower students to lead positive change. And so we want to be a part of that. People want to be a part of impacting people in a positive way. There's a million things you can give money to. There's a million things you can support. When we went out there and started the program, that was always what we did. And we also were determined, regardless of if you support us or not, we're still going to do this. Like, hey, we're still going to be empowering students. If you want to jump in, help us out, great. But if not, we're still going to do it.
Right.
And I got a lot of no's. A lot of people didn't, but then some people did. And then I think some of this I'd learned in college. I was really good at saying, well, hey, Senator Jabba Wagner supported this program, which he did. Phenomenal support from him. Then Arnold Mooney would do it. And then, and down the road and all these different people, and whoever, and you get, and then, there were things I had to do on my end, but our career tech program in Shelby County has done a phenomenal job of supporting. You have done a ton of support, and Cole have supported our program. But I think what people want to see is one, they want to buy into that you know where you're going, you have a purpose. And then also they want to see that it's like an investment. If you put money into a stock, you want to see a return. Yeah. And so we're not just, when we say empower students to lead positive change, we're still results driven. We're still getting results, but it's just our process to get there is different. We don't start with those. So I think when people walk in, they see all the stuff, or if they come to a day where we're running, they see students running things, and they want to get there really quickly, but you have to, it's kind of a long game. You have to start and you have to build it. And I think what's helped us, honestly, I really, really think what helped was that when we started, we had nothing. We had 20 kids that we had to convince them to be, because there was no cameras, no equipment. And they're like, how are we going to have a media program with no stuff? We're like, no, we'll make it happen. Come on and join us. Right. So that's how we had to start. I think it's a detriment. I think it would be difficult if someone were to come in and take over the program that I've got right now. I think the challenge would be you're not starting from the ground up. How do you have an appreciation and a work ethic built in to where you're going to be driven? And because that's kind of tough. I can still think back to putting walls up in the studio or painting the walls or all that. And if you look at all the beadboard in the background, all the guitars that are hung and all the lights that are hung and all that, I physically put all that up myself, summer after summer after. I'm doing more stuff we're changing stuff out this. We'll have to send some updated pictures. We're doing more stuff. But when people have seen that work in me, then I'm willing to put that into it, then others are willing to do that as well. I think it would be hard to come into something like this and have the same drive.
Yeah. I've said the same thing when I've left programs. I benefited from growing with it.
Right.
And for somebody to come in after that growth has happened and just be sort of dropped into there, that's a tough spot to be. I wish there was a better, especially considering classrooms, I wish there was a better transitional.
Yeah.
When I left Calera and went to central office, I tried to stay connected. There was a lady that followed me immediately that I wasn't able to connect with for various reasons. Cole followed her. Well, Cole was one that I did stay a lot more connected with. Although he needed less of that.
Yeah,
He had some natural abilities, but in general, if a teacher's leaving a class like this, I feel like the more that teacher can almost like slowly trickle out of it rather than cold turkey jump out of it. It would help it a lot more, but it's tough. And I do not envy the person that follows you in there. Although in some ways I envy the person that gets to walk into that kind of opportunity.
Yeah. It's always tough when you leave something. I did that. I kind of had the same experience with student government where I left and I was really sad to leave. But I was ready to move on to the next thing. And I also knew and the person that's taken that over since has done a phenomenal job and done better, even done things that I'm like, man, I wish I would have done this, been able to do this. But it does take a little while to kind of get used to in transition. I think it's much easier in some ways. I've talked about this with other coaching friends. It's like, it's much easier to take over an 0-10 team when there's no expectations than it is to go in when there's high expectations. It's like, well, how do I may do things a little differently. So when we started this program, it didn't exist. It had like died 5 years before. And certainly what we do now is not anything like what they have done. But I also had the freedom to do that.
Right.
Whereas if someone came in and took this over, there might be an expectation that you're going to have a film program or a music program or whatever. And it's a lot of stuff. Doing yearbook, that was something, yearbook was something that we didn't do until 3 years ago with this program because I did it for a few years before that myself. I think pretty unsuccessfully. I had some really good kids. But when we moved that into Oak Mountain Media, I'd already had like 2 or 3 years of doing that. So I felt comfortable moving it into this program that I could, again, going back to this, like that I could support that person. Yeah. I wanted to be at least credible enough that when a problem came up, I could help them with it and they wouldn't just be floating out there on their own. So I do think it would be hard for someone to come in and do all of those things. I feel like in our business or the business I'm in with teaching, a lot of times there's not that bridge. When the teacher leaves the classroom, they're gone.
Right.
And there's not really like here's how you do all these things. They're just, someone's dropped in. So, but one thing that I do think about, because I'm not going to do this forever. I'm going to move on and do something else at some point. But I just think about, I watched this documentary on Netflix. Again, this is going to sound really egotistical because I keep talking about, Nick Saban and, I watched a documentary on Michael Jordan, but it was a Netflix documentary. I've seen it several times. And one of the things that struck me, and they're following Michael Jordan in like the 98 season, his last one before he retired. And one of the commentators or one of the people they were interviewing said that the most special thing about Michael Jordan, it wasn't his talent or his drive, or it wasn't any of those things. It was his ability to be 100% in the moment, that he could be in practice, and that's where he was. He wasn't thinking about all the, and you think about Michael Jordan, like all the stuff surrounding him, all the the craziness, like the sponsorships, the deals, he had there's a lot of drama happening in his life, but they said his ability to just in practice be there 100%, or like in a championship game, just be in that game and not be thinking about the next game or the previous game, and just be 100% in the moment. And so I think thinking about that, I think about this type of program and just how important it is to be present and in the moment and enjoying it. And then when it ends, when it's time to move on to the next thing, go into the next thing and just being 100% present there. And I think so many people miss out on opportunities because they're thinking of the next thing or they're thinking of the last thing, and they're not just like, well, this is where I'm right now. And that's really difficult to do. But
yeah, no. Well, I think you're doing a great job there, and I have enjoyed watching the growth, definitely. Speaking of that growth, just looking at these two.
That's a picture of that first one. If you show these pictures, that's like that James Spann interview. We were talking earlier. That interview went so bad. No, it didn't go bad because James Spann was excellent. And Ryan Hall, this was the best. This is still the example interview I use for students, how to do an interview.
Yeah.
But so two things. One, that set, we actually built that ourselves. And I mean, it was like we're in the classroom building that during school with like power equipment we probably shouldn't have had in the school building, nail guns and all that. But the second thing is that we did this interview. The first like 40 minutes of the interview, I realized that we weren't recording audio, and I couldn't figure it out. And I kept trying to figure it out in the middle of it. And finally, I figured it out 40 minutes into the interview, and I had to walk in there and say, James Spann, I am so sorry. I said, we have not recorded any of this audio. Would it be possible for us to do this whole thing again right now? And I don't know what I was expecting him to say because he's a local celebrity. He could not have been nicer. He was like, no problem. He said, this happens all the time. And I'm like, literally, we're taking up an additional hour of your time. And he was phenomenal. And I just remember like, that's just the way to be. Yeah. But yeah, so well, yeah.
And Ryan Hall, you talked about him earlier. He was sort of the instigator, from what I understand.
Yeah, he's an instigator.
This off.
He's an instigator, Ryan Hall. That's a good description.
And now he works in news.
Well, so now he has his own show with Alpha Farmers Association. Like it's his own show. So he got hired away from CBS 42. He does a show they liked him so much they hired him to do his own show. So on Sundays on ABC 3340, I think is where one of the places it'll air. He's got his own show.
That's
talking
awesome.
about farms and farmer issues.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the most amazing things about doing what you and I have done in the classroom. We get to create opportunities for students to lean into interests that they have, and we get to watch the impact of that on their life outside of school.
Right.
I had a close friend of mine who was a former student. He was sitting at this desk right behind me just this past week. His name's Tyler, and Tyler was my first editor as a teacher. Like he had some pirated version of like Sony Vega.
Was this at Oak Grove?
At Oak Grove.
Wow.
So he had a pirated copy of some type of editing software that he was using at home on a computer that was probably crashing often.
Right.
And I was able to say, hey, we have Premiere Pro. Although on another computer that crashed often.
Right.
And he dug into it, and he struggled through the challenges that we were facing with incapable hardware, with really heavy lifting software. But he did it and progressed and learned, and the equipment progressed and grew, and now he works for a company doing video production in Nashville.
That's so cool.
And he's one of those that I just love being able to like watch him sort of flourish and grow in that kind of work. He came in just earlier last week to help me because I was behind on some editing. I was like, hey, if you're in town, you mind working on this with me? And so he's great. But yeah, you get to do the same thing with Ryan and quite a few others from what I understand.
Yeah, we've had a lot of, it's been really fun building the connections. There's another picture of Brittany Decker. She's been phenomenal. She's been a supporter of our program for years and years. And she'll come in and do like in-school field trips with our kids and kind of teach them how to interview and some of the stuff she's doing. But yeah, it's really the best thing. The only thing I can think that would be better than this, which is something I really, you talk about like next things, like what's next for me. And you're talking about your former students, and I'm sure you have kind of a joy in this. I would love to be in some position at some point where I could try to hire some of these people.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that in school, I love working with students, but they're there and they're gone.
Right.
And the idea that what if you have someone, and I know you've not as a student, but you've had this kind of relationship with Cole where, y'all work together for a long time, and you get to see the growth in him over years and years of just what he's able to do. But he's also you grow because of him as well, and sort of that relationship. So I think that would be an incredible like joy to be able to hire someone or contract with someone or work with someone in a professional sense that at one point you've had as a student, or even if it's not someone that's been a former student, someone that you can just really pour into.
Yeah.
And
I've told Tyler, move back to Birmingham, man. I'll hire you
I
in a
know.
heartbeat.
I mean, but yeah, that's the joy. And Ryan is someone who, you know, he really did help start the program. I mean, initially he was a short story. He was the in SGA, and I was the SGA advisor. And then going into his junior year, he asked me, he said, I really want to start a media program. Could you help me with that? Because he knew that like I would get things done. I just thought I could figure out a way. And so we kind of came up with a way to start it, and it involved him doing a lot of work because at the time what really carried a lot of weight with our administration, and still does, was students advocating. And so he started a club before it actually had a place to go, and he had a student petition and all this stuff, and then went to the principal, and then I kind of came in behind him and said, hey, I'll lead this if you need someone to lead it. And that's how it got started. So it's cool to see all these years later that he's actually doing something that he dreamed of doing as a middle school kid. When he graduated high school, he was going to at one point be an entertainment lawyer, and then he was going to get into politics. And so it's cool to see how all this stuff he's done has kind of shaped where he is now back on camera. And he's so good on camera. Yeah. He's so good. And like, I see this picture of him interviewing James Spann, and like he now has his own set where he actually does interviews, and it's on TV. So
that's so cool.
It's pretty cool.
That's really neat for him to sort of full circle start this program, and then it ultimately become, you know, very similar to what his career is now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And sort of like he's starting something new once again. Well, the question on this says lessons learned, or the statement is lessons learned. Give me one takeaway from one of your biggest takeaways from the time that you've spent at Oak Mountain Media.
Well, you know, I'm not good at short phrases. I'm not good at like boiling things down to like one word. I mean, there's a lot of things. I would just say that what I've learned in Oak Mountain Media is that I think students are far more capable than maybe some people think they are.
Even themselves.
Especially themselves. And I think that's so true in everything. I think that just, if I was to say like what have I learned, is just the power of giving someone confidence in themselves.
Yeah.
And that does so much, you know, because I don't know where these kids are going to go. I don't know what their careers are going to be. I have many who never want to go into a career in media at all. And some of the best, hardest working, most impactful leaders in our program have no desire to go into media, but they're in our program because they do have a desire to, you know, to lead, and they see value for themselves. So I would say that just the biggest takeaway that I've gotten is the power of investing in helping a kid become more confident in themselves. Because if you can give a student, you know, help them feel confident at this age, then it's just going to continue to grow. And a lot of this is not, you know, this is kind of a phrase I say a lot. It's not how fast you go, but how soon you start. So if I can help a kid at 14 start to see themselves as more than they think they are, or 15 or 16, I've seen students they leave and they're just like, they believe in themselves. And I think that's the most important thing. And everybody has a role in that. Parents have a role in that. The other classes have a role in that. So I just look at it as like, if I have a kid who at the end of the year, at the end of the school year, after being in my program, if they're more confident in themselves, then it's a success. And I don't know. It seems simple, but man, that goes a long way. And especially high school kids. I mean, you know, confidence in themselves. I mean, in a world that's constantly telling them what they should do and who they should be and what's cool and what's not cool and all that, if they can just kind of start figuring out who they are and who they want to be and be confident in that carries more than anything.
Agreed. I mean, I think all of us want that kind of stuff for our own kids even. So I can imagine it does well there. I clicked backwards. I'm going to skip through a couple of things. So do you remember this video?
I do not remember it being on camera ever. I'm very rarely on camera. Oh wait, this was a video. Were we like testing out the microphone?
We were.
We were testing out the microphone to see if like it would work. I remember when I start, all right, you want to talk about challenges? I spent months. I've just like spiked your audio right here. I spent months trying to figure out how do you get audio to a camera? Like, how does that work? If the microphone's not plugged into the camera, how do you record it over here and sync it up? And it mystified me. I didn't understand it. I couldn't comprehend it. And so I just remember that. I don't know. This reminded me of that.
I just love this video. It's you randomly
just turning around to see if the audio would still pick up if I was turned away from the camera.
With the wire, I don't even know why we were testing this. It doesn't fully make sense because at one point I think we're testing the on-camera mic.
We were.
And then, so some of this is you talking and it's only the mic on the camera.
Right.
And then other times you have the lav. And I think maybe we also used the built-in mic on the transmitter as well. But it's just fun to watch. I was looking through, I think I still had this on my phone for some reason. So
that's so funny.
Yeah, it's a good one. I thought it was
the
fun.
things in media that just still mystify me. Like, I don't understand how radio waves work and transmit. I don't know.
Audio. I mean, it is. That's for wireless transmission of anything, video or audio, is really pretty incredible, the kind of technology we have. So, all right. So you've already mentioned the idea of next. I want to know what's next for Oak Mountain Media. Is there any kind of new addition? I mean, we didn't even talk about. I skipped over the Paragon.
Oh yeah,
we didn't talk about the animation kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So there's a ton that you're already doing, but leaning into what we've talked about a lot with leadership, with creating these opportunities for these students, for talking about just that like development of today's youth. What's next? Where do you see that going for Oak Mountain Media?
Well, I think for that's kind of a hard question to answer, because when you're working with a high school group, kind of like we talked about, I think one thing that you have to do, and this is something I learned in coaching, is when the season's over, you're starting from scratch. And the leaders that you had, the seniors and people that had impact are leaving. You don't know, you have new things are happening. So I'm starting over, right? The new team I have, I'm starting over. The people in leadership positions, we've already done interviews and then we have the process and all that. But I'm starting over with all of them. So if I try to compare next year to this year, then I'm setting myself up potentially to be disappointed, right? So I try to look at it not as what's next for the program, but where are the people that I have right now, and how can I help them maximize their potential?
Yeah.
And if they walk out the door in May, like if we're a year from now, if they've maximized their potential, then that's a successful year, regardless of how great this year went. And that's tough to do because, this year was kind of a really good year in terms of producing things that got some outside recognition and some things that we've done. And a lot of that was because we had a lot of great senior leaders. And they weren't great leaders because they were seniors. They just happened to be seniors that were great leaders. And we just sort of ended up with, we divide into different departments, and we just had people that were over those departments, students that had been doing things for a couple of years. And so they had a couple of years under the belt of learning how to do films, learning how to do, graphic design in our yearbook. And so the quality of naturally is going to be better. Their leadership is going to be better because they've been doing it for a couple of years. So I guess the answer to what's next for Oak Mountain Media, we have the improvement side of what we're going to do. There's some new equipment. There's always new equipment, right? There's new equipment we're going to get. The biggest thing I'm excited about in terms of like what's going to happen is the county is coming in and they're like reflooring the entire area in the lab. We've, thanks to Career Tech, we've added more computers and more areas. We're redoing the space a lot to make it more functional and also make it more welcoming. I think that's really, really important, that when anyone walks in, and you've done a great job here in the studio, but when you walk in the door, it's got to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the big, probably physical change for next year of what's next for Oak Mountain Media. As far as like what's next in terms of what we do, I've got to reset and just be like, okay, this is where everybody's at. How can this person, where are they? And what does it mean for them to reach their potential? And that's hard to do because it's almost like you feel like, I feel like we're coming off like a state championship season. Like I feel really, really great about what we've done, but I love this quote. I have all these quotes. Andy Stanley had a quote. It said, when your memories exceed your dreams, the end is near. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I always think as long as I'm more excited about what's next, even if I don't know exactly what it is, if I'm more excited about it than I am talking about what's happened, then I need to stay in it. So I'm excited for what this year is going to hold and excited for what the kids are going to do. And I want to try to be like Michael Jordan in that way of just being like in the moment and being excited, not thinking 5 and 10 years down the road. I think the program still has a lot of potential growth because we're always going to have people in the program that can grow. The growth now is a little different than it was in the past. In the past, it was getting stuff because we didn't have anything.
Right.
Now we have a lot. How can we really fully utilize and maximize what we do have? So the growth is more in the people than it is in the actual resources we have. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, like we've talked about, you've got a ton of resources. A lot of it thanks to your just unwillingness to take a no.
Yeah.
But then also those partnerships that you've built over the
years.
Tons
of, I mean, anything that's successful, like you can't give credit to just like one person. I mean, It does take someone to come in and like kind of be the catalyst for that to happen. But I mean, there's nothing that I could have done in this program just on my own. I mean, there's been tons of people helping, from our custodians at the school who will come in and like loan me tools or help me put stuff. I mean, but again, I think it goes back to like when people see you working, they want to like help you out. They don't want to help you if you're just asking for stuff, but you're not actually putting your own time into it. So I think when that's been really fun for me I would say those connections, and even like connections with you, like the best thing I've gotten out of it, like what have I benefited from it, is all the like connections I've made and people I get to hang out with like you. And, we talk all the time about stuff. And anytime I get new equipment, I'm like, hey, look at this thing I got, and if I get it before you get it, then I'm excited. I'm like, look at this.
Definitely. I mean, that Ronin 4D, I still would love to take it out and actually use it at some point.
Oh, so, yeah.
I mean, I think we got our hands on it a little bit that day I was over there last time. But
it's crazy. Yeah.
It's a wild camera. Yeah. So Frankenstein. All right. So this question I ask everyone. I think you've already listed off quite a few people that inspire you. And speaking of, this is one of those, was this the first one that I ended up videoing?
So, yeah, this does look like the first one.
This may have been that first leadership, the leadership forum. What do you call it?
Leadership conference.
Leadership conference.
That we had.
Those are really great that you put together. I mean, that you do for the whole district, not just for
What's funny is you can see over time I've gotten a lot more comfortable, because the first one I'm like in a coat, like a jacket, and now if you watch like the videos from the ones we recently did, I'm like in jeans and like a t-shirt. So I definitely was putting a lot more dressing up the early ones.
I would say that probably the quality of the event itself has gotten better as your attire has gotten more
That's
relaxed.
right. That's right. That's right.
That's how you can judge how
That's
good
how
it
you
is.
can judge, yeah.
John's trying to overcompensate with his
If
suit.
it's good, people don't care. People don't care what you look like if you're putting on have a good product.
But who inspires you? Who pushes you yourself to that next level?
I mean, I would say first and foremost, my mom. And I mean, my mom is an incredible person. She, I never forget. I always have these quotes. This is my favorite quote, and I've said this over and over. Is I had gotten in trouble at school one day in elementary school, and I'd been mean to a kid or something like that, and we were driving home, and I remember where we were. I remember exactly where we were on the road on Highway 31 in Vestavia. We were coming back. And she said, people will never remember the things that you did, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And I just remembered that quote, and that kind of stuck with me even over all these years, is that, I'd like for when people leave anything that I was a part of making happen, whether it's this conference and this is the thing they come to, or my class, or I have them for 4 years or whatever, that they feel better when they walk out of the room than they did when they came into the room.
Yeah.
I'm not always successful at doing that. I fail at that more often than not, but I would say she is number one, someone who inspires me. I think when you get older and you get maybe nostalgic, you start, appreciating your parents more. My wife inspires me. She's an incredibly hard worker. She has more drive than pretty much anybody I know. And she has such a positive attitude about things. And then I would say that I've been fortunate to have some mentors in my life that have inspired me, but then also, students like Ryan Hall inspire me. You inspire me. I mean, I've told you this. I mean, you need to have a podcast one day where it's just somebody asking you questions about your journey, because your journey is incredible. I mean, to go from, I'm blown away. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm still just impressed to go from being a high school teacher. And it's real easy to just say, man, this is what I'm going to do forever. I'm going to get my 25 years or get my 30 years or whatever. But to go from that to then creating a space for yourself, and then creating a space for yourself in a really well thought of, highly ranked, really great school system, to literally create a space for yourself and a need that has even expanded beyond you. And then to leave that and start a company that's also having success. I mean, it's incredibly inspiring. That inspires me, because I think, I'll be starting year like 21 or something next year. And so I'm thinking of, what's the next thing in my career? And I'm like, well, if, look what Brian Pope did. Like, he took an idea and he wasn't afraid to step out there. And I think that's really, really cool. So
Appreciate that.
Yeah. You inspire me, man. My mom, and then you.
There you go.
My mom and you. And it's
there's
close.
a big gap in between.
It's close. It's real close.
Really big
So yeah, that's who inspires me. I learn a lot from the Maxwell and these types of books, but that's not the same level of inspiration as to me, what inspires me the most is people that I know and have a relationship with, and then I see them do things, especially when it's people that are not well known. Because to me, it's a lot harder to be really, when someone's really authentic and genuine and nobody knows who they are.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's real, because it's different when everyone's expecting you to be inspiring. That's different than when no one's expecting you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, I agree completely. Some of my most incredible opportunities and most inspiring moments that I've experienced oftentimes are from behind a camera, interviewing that teacher or that bus driver or that custodian who has so much wisdom and heart and purpose behind what they're doing that's so much bigger than just, pushing a mop or driving a bus or teaching a class. It's like it's the people that typically would sort of slide under everyone's radar.
Yeah.
It's when you get a chance to sit down with them, and a camera has afforded me often many opportunities to sit behind a camera and ask somebody questions and peek into their world. And many times it's been incredibly inspiring.
Well, it's really telling about who you are as a person too, because, some people would not have that vision to use this forum for that. I'm not paying you any money for me to be here today, so the fact that you're...
Wait a minute. You didn't get my invoice?
Oh, yeah, I did. I put it in this special folder that I have for all the emails you send me.
The Z folder.
But yeah, I think that, but to me, it's like what you're doing with your time and your opportunity. It's like, it's not all about, the money that you make. It's not all about, to me, so much of it is just like relationships that you build and people, we were looking at a picture of like the Chicago trip we took. And that was such a great trip. I don't remember anything that I learned there, but I just remember like having a fun time walking around with you and Jennifer. And it was just a really cool experience. But those are the types of things that I think are impactful and you remember, and so it's, I think it's exciting to think about what's next when you think about who that's going to be with and how you're going to be impacting people and who you're going to be helping. And I think as long as you have that mix going on, I think everything's good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, talking even about what we were just talking about. That reminds me of why I'm thankful to do what I do. I'm thankful that I do get to walk into places and sit down and talk with people, whether it's here in this studio or whether it's, in Auburn City or Tuscaloosa County. Mm-hmm. I get to walk into places and I get to sit down and talk with people that oftentimes their stories would go untold otherwise, and I get to sort of share that with the world. And I think you do the same thing. You get to bring students into a space where they get to almost build their own future. They get to explore their own ideas of creativity, and it really is neat to just be a part of that that narrative.
Yeah,
and
well, it's fun, and I think too, like it's just fun. It is all these, and I feel like we've had a pretty deep conversation about all the meaning of life and all the stuff that we're doing. But like, the other part of it too is just fun. Like playing with the camera is fun. I know you've done this because I've done this too, is like you get like some new equipment in and you just like test the limits of it, or like you get some new lights in and you've got this great like light setting. But I know that those light bars you have over there, you've seen all the little special effects they can do and joke, like the police lights and all, so like it's fun to, it kind of reminds me of like that joy you have when you are a kid and you have something new that you can just kind of like, it's like Christmas Day, like anytime. And I know this is the same for you. When you get that box that comes in, it says B&H on it or Amazon, and you're just so excited to open it and like, here's this new thing. So I think that's a really fun part of it too, is that, you could be doing this you could be having impact in a lot of different ways. I could be having impact in a lot of different ways. It's really, really fun to be able to do that with like cameras and lights and computers and stuff that is kind of like fun to play with. So
I agree. Well, thank you, John. Thank you for talking with me today. Thank you for what it is that you're doing in so many students' lives in Oak Mountain, but I know it's also gone way beyond Oak Mountain. All over Shelby County that you've impacted, and I'm sure those impacts are reverberating far beyond that even. So thank you.
Thanks for having me today, man. Appreciate it.